What's up, everybody? My name is Dean Chessman, and today I'm going to be showing you how I make this ASCII art sort of Severance-inspired effect using TouchDesigner. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to start by adding some variables using a constant chop. I'm going to start with a, what should I call this? A grid resolution pixels. This will be how many pixels I want each of my squares in the grid to be. Let's also put our rectangle size. These might seem redundant, but I mean, I might want my grid to be split up in some larger amount and have my rectangle be smaller inside of that, the rectangle that has the texture with the text on it. If this doesn't make sense right now, hang on, it'll make sense later. So I'm going to do this as a really small number to start, if I remember correctly, for my tests. And then I'm going to bring a keyboard in. This is going to be, I'm going to rename this to my reset, mostly for my feedback tops that I might add, just so I have an easy reset, so I can hit 1 and it'll trigger my reset. And let's see, is there anything else I wanted? I know I also want to add, at some point I'm going to have an aspect ratio, but I'm going to come back and fill in what that is later with an expression. So let's merge these all together, and then I'm going to put them in a null. I'm going to call that variables. I'm going to right click and hit view, and then I'm going to put that up here where I don't click anything else normally. Okay, let's move that up. And as you might notice, I have my little video feed in here because instead of just bringing a video device in, which is what you should do. So if you're following along in this tutorial, you'll want to add a video device in. I'm already using that for my little picture-in-picture Dean down in the corner. So I have that coming out to this top, and this is my video device in. So for you, again, you'll just do video device in. You'll pick your camera, but I'm going to use this as my input for now. I'm going to put this into a null just so I can easily swap out my content. I'm going to name this video, and then I'm going to go ahead and make my aspect ratio here, because I'm going to use that in a few places. So this is going to be my op video, my operator called video.width, width divided by op video dot height, and great, 1.77. Now it's in my thing here, so I can quickly grab it and throw it into what I need. Okay, so what I'm first going to do with this video, since I want to create a grid that is interactive with text on it, and I essentially want to take my image I have now and shrink it down so that I can take just 1 pixel per grid unit that I want to create. So I'm going to do that by making resolution top and using my grid resolution pixels to create my resolution. So I'm going to go on the resolution top in the custom or the common tab. I'm going to select custom resolution, and then I'm going to use an equation here using op video divided by what this grid resolution pixel is. Shoot, I should have done that first. So let's see. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So let me open this up. So I've got my grid resolution pixels here. I'm going to take op video dot width divided by that that variable reference, and then I'm going to copy and paste it down to the height and change width to height. There you go. So now if I middle click on this video, I see this one's 1920 by 1080, but then if I middle click on this one's down to 192 by 108. And if I zoom in, you'll see it's nice and pixelated. So this is going to be what I use to feed the source of my data. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating sort of a reference of textures that I want to be able to select from those textures which value I want based on the value in each of these little grid pixels. And because I only need one value for that, I'm going to change this to monochrome. So now it's just black and white. And I don't need this to be RGBA. I can change that to, let's do 8-bit float mono, or let's do 16. just so we have a little more smoothness potentially there. Maybe that doesn't make a difference. Somebody can tell me in the comments if that doesn't make a difference. Okay, so this is going to give us mono values. If I hit activate, then N to show me the normalized value, I can see I've got all numbers between 0 and almost 1. That's pretty good. And okay, let's go on from there. I'm going to go ahead and put this in a null and call this, what should I call this? The texture value, because that's what I'm going to use to select my textures later. Okay, so when I add these into an instancing network, I'm going to need the values of what each of these pixels are, where they live in the XY space. And that's all essentially what a UV map is. So I'm going to make my basic UV map out of this using my standard GLSL trick here, bringing in GLSL top. And then in this color line, I'm going to copy this little chunk here, this v.uv.st, which will give me for each pixel where it's at in the image. And then I'm going to put 0 for the blue value. So that gives me the RG data is in this first section. Blue data is here. This is the alpha data. And now I have this nice UV chart. If I hit A and N again to separate the different channels normalized, you'll see the X values and the U values and the red values. Those are all the same thing here. Go from left to right, 0 to 1. And the Y values or the green values or also the V values go from 0 to 1. And I don't need these two, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. And I definitely want to use 32-bit float on this because I want as much precision as I can get out of these values. I'm going to activate again, or activate and hit normalize again to get that to go away. Okay, so now I've got my UV values. There's one small issue with this as well that, as I said, this is going 0 to 1 in the X values, but because my aspect ratio is wide, I actually want to make sure these relative pixels stay wide. And so I'm going to use a math top here. And in the range, I'm going to take these red values, instead of going from 0 to 1, I'm going to go 0 to whatever this aspect ratio is, which this will make it work nicely too if I have a tall aspect ratio. We'll show that later in the video as well. Let's go ahead and put this in a null and call this POS for position. And great. So what's next? Let's go ahead and make our texture array that we're going to be using. So what I want to use text as like my shader tool, right? So I want to have a piece of text, like a period, for example, is a very black text. Like if it's a white period on a black background, that means it's mostly black. Or like the number 8 has a lot more values, or has a lot more white value than black value than a period, for example. So that's what I want to use. And my favorite way to create these text gradients is actually just to ask ChatGPT to do it for me. So I'm going to bring in my my ChatGPT here. Sorry, lost it for a second. Okay, so, and this is what I write for my ChatGPT prompt. Give me a list of ASCII style characters from, quote, darkest to lightest. A period is dark while an 8 is bright. Give me 20 characters in a code block with a line break for each. Please use non-letter and non-number characters. This last, the non-letter, non-character thing you can obviously use if you want to have actual numbers or letters or something specific. So I'm going to see what it gives me back. Great. So now I've got this nice list of characters that you can tell, like these are not using as many white pixels all the way up to having more. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that into a text stat. So add text stat, hit A to activate, paste that in. Got my list of letters here. Great. I'm going to convert it to a table and then I'm going to put that in a null. And I'm going to call this characters. And actually, instead of doing this out here, I'm going to put it in its own base. So I'm going to right click on this outside of this and click collapse selected. That'll go ahead and add that with an input for me. And I'm going to call this base character textures. Okay, double click into that. And I'm going to reorganize it a little bit because I'm going to use a replicator here, and the replicator does things based on what the kind of crosshair X and Y positions are here. I'm going to move these over to the left of the crosshairs. Okay, so I've got my characters coming in, and like I said, I'm going to use a replicator. So I'm going to go into my comp tab and add a replicator. And what am I replicating? I'm going to replicate a, not a text top, a text top. And so in a replicator, you can select what the template dat table is. So that's going to be my characters. That's the template I'm going to use. And then the master operator that I'm going to copy is going to be this text one. And you'll see already, I like to put my layout vertical here so they're all kind of listed. So I've got 20 of these text tops all in a row here. And right now they're all the same. They're all just saying derivatives. So how can I programmatically make these so that they each pull in the character that I want? The way to do that is using the me.digits script, I guess you'd call it, or the reference in TouchDesigner. So right now I'm just like hard coding this derivative, but if instead I say I want to use the op characters, which is this dat, and then I'm going to use the selector in that dat with the brackets, and I'm going to tell it first which row and then which column. So the row is going to be me.digits. And what that's saying is, like, for this operator, I'm going to look at my name and use the digit that's found in the operator. And you'll notice with all these copies, each of those copies has a number with them. So let's do me.digits. I hit enter, and then you'll notice first it just takes that literally. Instead, I have to go in and say this is an expression. Oh, I forgot to do the second part. So me.digits, and then the second part is choosing the column, which is column 0. You see here, column 0. Okay, so I'm bringing in my first character here, which is an apostrophe. Actually, you'll see it's in 1. That's because that is item 1. And if I go ahead and go to my replicator and say recreate all operators to have this run, you'll see it pulled in each of these. But I'm missing one because it's only going 1 to 19, and this is going 0 to 19. So to get that other one in, I say I want to start out by ignoring the first row. There we go. Got item 0 now. And let's see, let's do some little adjustment on this. So let's look at our biggest character and make sure it like fills things up first just to get an idea. I'm just doing this mostly to see where this ampersand feels big in the page. So I'm going to go to the font of the ampersand, just kind of like pump it up until it like really fills up the space. So 230 is about the font size I want. And that's going to get overwritten when I replicate again. So I want to go to this master here. I'm going to go in my font and do 230. And that maybe chops that off a little bit. So maybe I should bring that down. Yeah, okay. And actually, before I do that, I don't want to use Verdana. I'm going to use Courier just to use a monospace font. I'm also going to use bold just to fill up a little more space. Let's see what those look like at that size. Am I going to get too big? Apparently we're missing this character. It's good to know. Okay. So character 7 is missing. So ChatGPT maybe gave me a character. Oh, it's just the underscore. That's why. So maybe I am too big still. Let's adjust that down a little more. Let's go to like 190, and then replicate again. Okay. So maybe the underscore is not the best character to use for this. Let's use. Let's see. Is there something around that? Maybe I use the pipe. It might not be perfect, but let's throw it in and see what happens. Okay, I want to replicate that again. And pipe comes in fine. Great. Okay, so now I've got all these tops here with all the different textures that I want. How do I map these now to be somehow referenced by this monospace or this monochrome value? The way to do this is I need to use a texture 3D top. And these texture 3D tops are able to store multiple layers of textures all in the one operator as an array. And you'll see that, this in the options here, I can save a 3D texture or a 3D or 2D texture array. And to do what we're going to do, I'm actually going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to use the operator snippets. And if you don't know about the operator snippets, I'm excited to show them to you because they're very useful to show you how different operators work. So this is a great example here. So if I right click on the text 3D and go to operator snippets, it'll load for a second here. And then I'll see this little example project where they're bringing in these textures into a switch, which the switch has this index that's referencing the frame that the current project is going through. And with that, it's adding the layers into this texture 3D top as well. So you'll see all 6 of these textures are being brought into this texture 3D top. And I'm just going to shamelessly copy these 2 and paste them in. I'm going to get rid of my old one. And then this is what I'm going to use to fill up my texture 3D top. So I'm going to select all of these items. I'm going to drag them in. And then to actually fill this up, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say pre-fill pulse. Oh, and I skipped a step. So right now the cache size is only 6. To keep this dynamic in case I add more characters or remove characters, I'm going to use op characters.num rows. So now I'm up to 20. That should be right. And I pulse again with the pre-fill. And there we go. I've got all of my different values all in a row. So I'm going to send that to an out. And you'll notice now this out, normally if I do an out, it'll look like one of these, right? Like it'll just have the aspect ratio, the size and everything. But if you notice these 2, if I click on them, this is saying the type of this out is now a 2D texture array and there's a depth of 20. So when I come back out here, I can add a null. I can call this textures. And all of my textures are stored in this top. These are 256 by 256 textures, 20 deep. Okay, so got that ready. Let's go ahead and add our instancing network here. So first of all, we're going to add a rectangle SOP as our sort of base unit. And I'm going to use this rectangle size as our size here. So we can easily change that in the future. And then I'm going to, I got to say this every time because people always ask comments about how I'm doing this. I drag out from the SOP. I hit tab and then I select my geometry while I was, while I'm holding that connector out, I hit tab and then I add the geometry. This automatically adds the input to the geometry and connects it. Okay, so I've got my geometry. Let's go ahead and do some of our instancing here. So I know I'm going to turn instancing on. I'm going to bring in my position first, which is my translate op in R and G. Okay, so I've got my grid of rectangles. And I'm already seeing it's like, it's probably too small, right? So if I right click and view, let's like stretch this out. Let's get it to a good size where we pretty much fill up the grid here with our current parameters. So let's scale this up until we just pass sort of our crossover point. Great. Okay, next I'm going to show you how I connect these 2 things. So for texture instancing, or instancing textures, you want to first bring in our texture coordinate operator. So this is going to say where in this sort of like 3D stacked texture array do I want to select. So I'm going to bring in my texture value as the texture op. And then the depth is what is this width. So I'm going to use the R value since that's my monochrome value there. Okay, and then the texture I'm selecting is this instance texture. I'm going to put that my texture array in this textures instancing. Okay, so that's not totally going to work, but I'll show you why here in a second. Let's get the rest of our network set up. So let's first add a constant. I'm going to add that as the material. I'm going to add a camera. And then for our camera options, we want to go into view. I'm going to stick with orthographic. And let's see. I want to be able to visualize this while I'm doing it if I can. So you can kind of see it there. It's pretty dark, but anyway, back to the camera. The ortho origin, I'm going to do bottom left, and my ortho width is going to be my aspect ratio again. This is where I pull that in again. And then I'm going to go to my render top, and let's set up our resolution to be the same as our video width and height. So op video dot width, and then op video dot height. Okay, so now we're going to match. And let's see, what am I doing wrong? My geo is not getting referenced in here. Why is that? I hit that button accidentally, I guess. All right, so now we're rendering. Somehow I unchecked my render flag there. Okay, so yeah, So we see what we've got right now, and you'll notice I've only got 2 of my characters showing up. Why is that? So this reference here, if I do my favorite trick of activating, hit normalize, you'll see I'm only going from 0 to just under 1 here. But I've got 20 values, and this reference in the instance layer actually wants, because I'm using a 2D array, it increments in single values. So I need to go, instead of from 0 to 1, I need to go from 0 to 20. So that's easy enough to do. Let's insert an operator here. Let's add a math. And let's see, what should we use as our reference for the number of characters? So I'm going to add another null in front here, and I'm going to call it characters again, just for clarity's sake. So I'm going to go to the math and go to my range here, and I'm going to rearrange my image from being, instead of from 0 to 1, I'm going to rearrange it to op characters.numRows. So that should be 20. That looks right there. So now I'm going from 0 to 20 in my monochrome image. And now if I go into my render here, you'll see I have many more different types of characters showing up for all the different values. I've got my ampersands in my really wide areas. I've got my periods here in the black areas. So we've got our basic setup here. Let's put an out and let's view. Okay, so this on its own is a pretty cool effect. Obviously, you can do a lot with just this, and change out different characters. After you do a replicate, you could go in. I could go in here and even just on a specific, maybe on that pipe that I changed, I could change just the color of that one to red, maybe, and then maybe that'll show up in here. Oh, maybe I didn't. I forgot to. I gotta fix my prefill. There you go. Okay, so now you're seeing in my image, I'm getting those red pipes showing up in there, just the one accent color in there. Okay, so what can we do from there? I'm not the biggest fan of just making kind of like static grids of things, and so we're gonna go kind of full Severance style movement effect on this. In a couple ways. So let's kind of move our position down here, because this position is saying where each of my grid pieces are going, but what if I want them to move around a little bit? So the easiest way to do that, to start at least, is just to pop in a noise, and it's going to be ugly for a second because we need to change some options here. So in my noise, I know I want it to be offset from 0. I want to not be monochrome, because it's just going to be RNG, so I need it to be, it's red and green. And then I'm going to be input plus noise, that's good. And now I'm just going to bring my amplitude down. So if I bring it all the way down, you'll see it goes to nothing. If I bring it up just a tiny bit, it can make it a little interesting. And then now I can go into transform and animate it. So in the Z value on the transform, I can say abs time dot seconds. I'm going to do it divided by like 13. And you should see, a little bit of wobbly motion stuff happening. I'm going to bring my period down a little more too, just to bring that effect maybe a little. Well, maybe I'll bring it back up. Let's see. Obviously, something you can play with in a million different ways here. Okay, so now I've got that motion happening, but I want to also have it be interactive, like when I move around a little more. Obviously, like the characters are changing as I move around, but let's add some actual movement to the grid here too, using my favorite optical flow. We'll just do an optical flow feedback network here, which I've done in many videos. I've done it a lot, so I won't explain maybe quite as heavily as I have before. But I'm going to bring in my original video with the full resolution here, because it'll give me more of my motion data. You'll see as I move, it's adding kind of the movement directional data of where it thinks I'm moving, left and right, up and down. So I'll take that, I'll go into a feedback, I'll go into a displace, and into both inputs for the displace. So I'm displacing the image by itself. And then I need to adjust some of these here, because I'm just using a red and green value. In fact, one of the things I like to do every once in a while, if I'm worried about like processing, you'll notice if I hit A and N, I've got 4 channels here, but I'm only really caring about red and green data with this optical flow. So if I go into the actual optical flow tool, into the GLSL, I can change this to be a 32-bit float RG. And then if I come in and reset my feedback, it's back to, just RG. It's a good reminder too. I can take my reset and assign it to my pulse. Now I can reset that feedback just by hitting the number 1 on my keyboard. Okay, with the displace, let's finish our feedback loop here. So I'm taking my feedback loop, I'm displacing it. I'm gonna blur it so that it kind of spreads out. And then I'm going to use a math to reduce it back towards 0 so it doesn't go running away, but I'm gonna keep it pretty subtle, so like 0.99. And then I'm gonna take that and add it to my input from the optical flow. Then I'm gonna drag this add back to my feedback. So we should start seeing, oh, I must have skipped a step. I did. So in my displace, I forgot to drop these down. So my midpoint of my my data is actually at 0 because I'm going positive and negative. So let's make the midpoint 0. And my displace weight, because I'm going to be doing this every frame, I want to displace by the super tiny amount. So 0.001, maybe 0.002. So yeah, you can see here it's like a nice kind of flowy liquid effect. Okay, so I've got that, but I need to bring it into my network here. And I know that my values here are probably going to be too high to just add straight into this position. So I'm going to put it into another math. And then I'm going to add it to this noise. And let's see, let's go ahead in the math and bring it down. And in fact, I do want a negative. I accidentally brought it down to negative, but I think I do actually want a negative just because of the direction that that this flow is giving me. So let's go back up here. So now you'll see as I move around, I should get some more liquidy effects that I'm kind of like controlling where these pixels are on top of each other. Let's make these bigger real quick so you can kind of see a little more detail of what I'm doing. So if I go back to my grid resolution, instead of 10 pixels per, I want to do 20. And then for my rectangle size, okay, you can see there, I want to change it till it's like nice and big. Okay, so now, okay, we might notice some problems here. If you notice, I can tell that like the little like texture cards are overlapping each other, and it's not looking as smooth because of that. So how do we fix that? Let's go to our material, and in the common tab we can turn on blending. So first of all, right away that should do pretty good. And for good measure, I'm also going to turn off depth testing, because when there's a bunch of overlaps, I don't care. Like they can just be overlapping like the you know, the colors and that I have for each of my textures. Cool. So that's feeling pretty good. What else could we do to this? I think, you know, maybe at this point I can also select my original video, like select my video null, and, you know, find ways to composite these together that are interesting. So I'm bringing a composite, drag my effect over my original video. And so, you know, I could go maybe with even something like that, bringing in the actual colors from my video. Or, you know, there's some crazier things you could do too. So like chroma difference, the chroma difference is not going to show a big difference there. So like a difference here, you know, just so you get that sort of reverse, so it always shows up even if it's on dark or light. You know, we could also add a constant after our effect if we want to color our text like all one color. So like maybe we want like a, you know, ASCII green sort of character color, and then we want that to just be over the top. So that's a potential effect there, obviously. What else? I don't know if I should go through every possible thing you could do to make this look cool in the end. Let's go ahead and test our cropped version 2. And because this was inspired by Show Severance, I'm going to bring in this amazing clip. I'm going to bring in a fit. I'm going to make this work for vertical resolution because I think I'm going to use this as my like my my video I used to kind of show this effect off. So I'm going to do a fit. I'm going to say fit out size. I'm going to do 1080 by 1920 because that's kind of social media resolution. I'm going to drag that into my video, and there we go. Okay, so there obviously needs to be some adjustment now based on size because of the resolution and stuff. So let's go down to like 10, and then let's bring our, let's not do 10. Okay. All right, maybe we can try some other things, other ways to composite this. I was playing with a couple ideas earlier where, let's take this guy, the constant, out, or at least bypass it for now. And then instead of over, I'm gonna do an add. And because add can kind of max out at a level of 1, I'm gonna come in a level on my input video and take my brightness to like 0.5. So now I'm getting this fun overlay. It's a little meta moment there where we're showing our severance effect on top of the actual severance effect. Okay, maybe even, what if we did like a multiply on this one with the crazy colors? Let's go back to over. Maybe with the constant, I can, go to like a more of a blue like the actual show does. It's always, fun idea to try a bloom to see what that looks like. Kind of get that CRT effect coming from it. Yeah, what else? Let's see, did I miss anything I wanted to talk about? Obviously, there's a lot of ways you can customize this. You can go in and change what these characters are. I also added some, there's like kind of crazy ASCII characters that you can, if I pull up my ChatGPT, I can like maybe show you actually. Let's pull in. So like here's another set that I had earlier. So I brought in, this one, and actually this one's in reverse order. So let's show how to deal with that. So like ChatGPT gave me in the wrong order of the brightness. So I drag it in here, but you notice nothing changed yet. That's because, let's get this to the side. That's because I need to come back into my character texture. I need to first do a re-replicate. Actually, it looks like it already did it on its own from the changing dat. And then, wait, oh yeah, so that worked. But then I need to go in my texture 3D and pre-fill. And this one, for whatever reason, only has 19. This ChatGPT didn't like listen very well when I asked for 20. And now we're seeing it. So now we're getting like kind of some full pixels like filled in. These ASCII characters are a little more fun. So like it's kind of a rad effect when it's fully filled out. Yeah, what else? It's interesting too that it retained my like red color on that one, I guess because it didn't replace the top, it just replaced the content inside of it with how Replicator works. Yeah, I'm not gonna go too much further on this. I think it's a cool effect, and we'll leave it at that. The project file that I used for this project file will be available to my Patreon supporters. So if you want this project file, you can sign up for that and download it. Also, I am a freelance TouchDesigner developer, so if you are working on an interactive installation or a big project that you need some help with, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to chat with you. I'm also going to start taking commissions from people. If you have a video that you want to run through some of these effects for social media or whatever it might be, definitely reach out and let me know. And we'll leave it at that. And be sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this, and like this video. Also leave any questions you might have for me in the comments. And definitely if you recreate this, I would love to see it. So the easiest way for me to see that is for you to tag me in your posts you make online, and I will pretty much always reshare what people make with my stuff because I get so excited about seeing it. Anyways, thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you at the next one.